Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Morbid. You are joining our very first Pulpit of Doom. I guess I'm going to have to stop saying podcast, but I guess we'll go with Pulpit of Doom live stream. With me tonight, we have Jaded and Pagan again.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Um, we're starting a little bit early. We were just doing a little bit of a test before we went on. We were just trying to figure out some bells and whistles here. For those of you who do not know who we are dreamanddemon.com. We're a true crime website, not your typical true crime website because we're actually still around for one, but two, just a little bit of a twisted sense of humor with some of the bad news that we report on. And we've been doing podcasts for many, many years off and on, and we just recently decided why not join the cool kids and start putting our stuff up on YouTube. And primarily that was born out of our frustration from using Skype. And we just wanted to use a Discord server to actually do the talking. And then one thing led to another. And here we are with our very first live stream. So, with all that being said, this won't be our typical format because we're going to be testing some things here and there. We've already found some problems. That's why we've had a couple delays tonight. And primarily, if I'm not mistaken, I just have some more screens and bells and whistles that I now have to look at um, while we are actually streaming. So, on top of that, I think we've already heard, or at least one of you guys have already verified, there's maybe a little bit of a streaming resolution issue, and I'm getting a message on that, and I will get that fixed on the next one. That's why I titled this one Episode 0, because I'm sure there's going to be multiple things that we don't have set right, and that we'll figure it out as we go. But we're not very professional, and I think everything we've ever done with our website has been by the seat of our pants. So this will be absolutely no different. So, as of right now, I mean, from what you're looking at, everything looks fine.
Yeah, I'm watching the clips now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we don't have intros, and the things that we used we were on, I don't remember how many different podcasting services we've used over the last decade. Um, I can't even remember some of the names of them, but the last one we were on was Spreaker, and we've used an intro there. It's not going to work on this one. It doesn't fit because the audio was fine. So I got some stuff that I'm working on. But anyway, we'll get an intro and all that crap set up, and we'll get that going. But normally, for the longtime members and listeners, they already know the drill. But for anybody who is listening to this after we went live, or new people who are listening today, normally the way it works is our podcast usually are us discussing the top 10 stories that we featured on the site for the week. And we probably won't stray from that. We'll probably go forward with that same format and add some things here and there. The only difference now is at least we can actually play some audio and some video of the news stories that we are talking about, and I don't have to rape anybody's names any longer.
You don't have to what?
I'll just let the video speak for themselves when I can't
Oh,
pronounce
okay.
somebody's names. Well,
I was watching the little kid in the live stream, and I got distracted.
well,
Sorry, I thought you said rape.
I did, and because in
Okay.
particular, because normally you always make fun of me because I can't pronounce some of these people's names, and we have
Yes.
the very first story that we have has a name that I had to actually listen to a couple times before I could get it right. So also, once we get done with the top 10 stories, which usually will lead into a variety of different discussions on some very stupid subjects, um, we will continue on after we stop on our Discord server. It may or may not be set up correctly. I don't know yet. We'll work it out. But the way I see this working in the future is that normally when we stop the stream or a podcast, we usually ended up bullshitting for a little bit afterwards. So in this way, with our Discord server, we're trying to get it set up with members can actually join in the discussion at that point if they want to listen in to some of the stupid stuff we talk about. Although some of it is about members, so we'll have to mix that one. And also, if you want to come on the air for any reason whatsoever, you're more than welcome to do that as well. But you would have to do that through the Discord server and just send a message, a private message to myself, Jaded, or Pagan to say that you would want to be on. Join the Green Room voice channel that you'll see listed, and we will get you on the air. That's the way it should work. We haven't done it yet, so we won't know yet, but that's the way it should work. And lastly, I think that's about it as far as an introduction into what we're trying to do with this live stream. So if we want to go ahead and go forward with it, we can go ahead and start talking about some of these stories. And you know what? The thing that sucks though is because I put so much time into trying to get this all set up, I didn't get a lot of stories up this week. So some of them are actually repeats of the ones that we talked about last week. So we may just skip through some of them.
Okay.
Sound good?
The number 10 story was the actual. This was a gentleman here, and hold on, and just let me know if you're able to see this or not, because this will be a very good test for me. Let me see here. Jorge. This was this guy that was in Florida that tried to set fire to the pedophiles. I don't know if you guys seen this story or not, but
yes, I did.
Sex offenders, not necessarily pedophiles.
That's true, and that is a very important distinction. So, all right, hold on. Here we go.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to let them say his name.
Puerto Sierra has been formally charged with 4 counts of attempted premeditated murder. Osceola County detectives say the 50-year-old confessed to deputies he tried to kill multiple people at the Friendly Village Inn.
You know what? This is the first time I've seen the video, right? And this was not the way I had envisioned when I wrote this up. And they're going to explain all this anyway, and I'll let it roll through here in a second. But just to avoid any type of copyright stuff, which we'll probably get at some point. And our subject matter alone is going to kill us on the monetization part in YouTube. They've really gotten strict on who can be monetized or not. And while we're not too bad, it's not like we're promoting anything against their community guidelines. Our subject matter, they may not like too much. So last thing I need is a bunch of copyright strikes. So if I start pausing the videos in the middle of it, don't get too aggravated. There's a reason behind it. And this reason was, when I wrote this up, in my head, I was thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. When I first wrote it, I was writing hotel. So I was thinking like this guy had went out to a hotel and done this. And then I had to go back and redo everything, because then I read that it was an actual motel. And once you hear what this guy did, it makes a little bit more sense now that I can actually see the way the building looks.
On Erlo Bronson Memorial Highway. After his March 7th arrest, Puerto Sierra said he arrived at the motel to, quote, barbecue all the child molesters on fire and kill them.
Okay.
All right. So, and they may explain this further in the video, but at least when I wrote it, this gentleman showed up at this motel, rammed a car, and started raising hell, and poured some gasoline over a vehicle in the parking lot, and then started banging on a door, raising hell at some people that are inside. And I think they said it was 4 men, and it may clarify that in this, but there was 4 men inside, 2 of which, at the time I wrote it, were confirmed registered sex offenders. And he busted out the front window of their room and started pouring gasoline inside of that as well, threatening to set them on fire.
Sorry to interrupt you, but he also poured gasoline into their room as well, right?
Right. You're right. He busted out the front window, to pour gas in the room. And we'll see if the video mentions it or not. When I wrote it, I did some looking around. I couldn't find anything in regards to why he was after these men in particular. I don't think that he was one of those, because we have reported on before, there's people that will actually go after pedophiles for one reason or another, where we've reported where they've actually went on a vigilante streak with the sole purpose of killing registered sex offenders, which I had a big issue with, because they were using a list, the registered sex offender registry, and those don't tell you why they're on it. So some of the people that he he killed or the person killed or may have been trying to kill could have been somebody that was some type of statutory situation where it was a 19-year-old or a 16-year-old or something. It wasn't a pedophile.
Or even getting caught peeing outside or having sex with your significant other outside.
That's correct. That's right. You can be put on the list for things like that as well. So that's why those lists. I'm just saying for any potential vigilantes out there, don't use the list. At least do a little bit of research before you start
Really?
killing them. Same way, we'll get back to this.
WESH 2 confirms at least 2 of the 4 victims are convicted sexual offenders. Witnesses told deputies Porto Sierra made several threats, screaming, quote, "I'm going to kill you, child molester," and began throwing gasoline on their front door. Porto Sierra even allegedly broke a hotel window to pour gas in. Witnesses say he was carrying a cigarette the entire time. Another couple said Porto Sierra rammed their car and poured gas on it. When asked by deputies why he did not carry out his threats, Porto Sierra said, quote, "You got here too soon."
So yeah, that's the story of what was his name? Jorge.
Jorge?
Jorge. Thank you, Jorge.
Yeah. Or hey.
So
And he was carrying a cigarette while he's
Right.
splashing gasoline all over the fucking place.
Right. He had that cigarette.
well, I liked his statement to the cops, about why he didn't go ahead and set fire to the joint. It was because they had gotten there too fast. I thought that was pretty funny. But a lot of people will give this guy a medal and all this. But, for one, I don't know the relationship he has with these guys. And I would understand if maybe a family member was a victim and maybe he lost it or whatever. I can kind of get it. But I can't really... I can't congratulate somebody who was about to set a hotel on fire. There's a lot of innocent people involved in that. Now, if one of these men was somebody that had been accused of raping his child or something, and he had taken him out into a field and done away with him, I mean, I'm not necessarily going to condone it, but I ain't not going to condemn it either. I would completely understand. And
Yeah.
I read somewhere he might have mental illness.
well,
Might.
Oh yeah. You read correctly, I would believe. And by him, the way he made his statement, I would have to say that he was wanting his 15 minutes.
Well, he could have come up with a better line besides, "Hi, child molesters, I'm here to kill you."
Yeah. Well,
I would have come up with something a little different.
well,
yeah, well,
it's like there's no love lost for me. Well, you always end up sounding like you're a sympathizer when you say things like this. And I see people get called this all the time whenever they even make a statement like this. So whatever. But it's like pedophile. Let's just say a regular pedophile, somebody who's just attracted to children, and that's just the way they're made up for whatever reason, whether it's mental, whatever it may be. I don't have necessarily an issue with somebody just because they're a pedophile. I have an issue with the ones that actually act on it. Those are the ones that I have no problems that if somebody wants to, throw them in a pit or make a nice fire out of them or whatever. I don't have a problem with any of that. I have a problem with vigilante stuff. That's my biggest problem. We have had stories before to where. And not just pedophiles, but it's usually pedophilia involved where somebody had actually attacked a child or whatever, and then they ended up getting killed. In fact, we had a couple recently within the last couple of years, and I wish I'd have pulled those up, and I didn't, where a father had walked in on the act being performed. Do you remember those two? We had two kind of close together, and they actually got off after they killed their child's attacker. And kudos, I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. It's those crazy people that go out and actually hunt them and do stuff. That's kind of hard to condone because it just goes down a path that, I mean, if you really follow the end game on that, that's kind of a society I don't think people would really want to live in. I really don't. And mainly because people are just so goddamn stupid. I mean, they truly are. To me, I mean, Pagan, I know we've had our multiple conversations while we're stuck in traffic. I mean, would you want some of these people that you are surrounded by who are operating motor vehicles like they're retarded actually outperforming any type of vigilante justice whatsoever?
That would be a negative Ghost Rider.
Right. So that's why I say sometimes in these articles, when it comes to anybody performing any type of vigilante justice, that I usually have kind of a negative bent on it because I am not a real big fan of it. And that's why. It's not that I don't think the person may have deserved it. There's no moral compass there whatsoever. It's just that if these idiots out here in the general public were started to be in charge of who dies or who gets strung up in a tree or whatever, when are you next? Because of something
Right.
that you did.
Real fucking soon.
Right, real quick.
Yeah,
So-
real, yeah. Tomorrow.
And who knows what for?
Oh yeah, your music. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen situations like that when things get out of hand, and I'm gonna probably make a connection here that if I think about it after I say this, it's gonna sound really stupid, but the whole in the '80s, that whole satanic panic syndrome that happened, those people that spent all those years in jail, especially those daycare people. Remember all the years they spent because of just a bunch of bogus bullshit. Well, to me, theoretically, that's kind of was a vigilante justice type of deal, was it not? It was like a mob mentality. I mean, that's the kind of way that I see things happening if you start letting the public run rampant and start making up their own laws and rules and justice and all that.
Then you just go back a couple 300 years, and you've got lynch mobs and
Right.
whatever, you know.
That's why while our legal system is not the best, and of course it makes mistakes all the time. Oh, and by the way, my spawn was at his mother's for Mother's Day, and he is just now pulling up. And what's going to end up happening here in a second is you're going to hear a dog going fucking berserk. And there's not much I can do about it until he gets in the house. So I apologize for that.
I'm just glad I'm not there.
He's okay. He's a good and alarm dog.
Chew your arm off.
He can be aggravating. But I totally forgot what I was getting ready to go into when I said that.
I don't remember either.
I don't remember. It was something to do with that whole satanic panic thing, but I don't remember exactly where I was going with it, so it doesn't really matter.
Satanic panic? Is that like Swayze crazy?
You don't remember all that, dude? Especially back in the day?
Yes,
Uh,
I do.
That case was brought up again recently for some reason, but I don't remember
well,
exactly
you had
what it was.
the West Memphis 3, that was involved in those guys. Well, some of it was involved with them.
Yeah, those guys talking about when they took. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, you can almost do a whole podcast on that because I've went both ways. I know when I watched the original documentary on HBO a long time ago, I was convinced that those guys had been unjustly imprisoned, and that's the way I've always felt about it. And then after you actually start looking at the stuff that wasn't in the documentary, the actual legal documents and stuff, I think that who was the other true crime guy? I don't know what he does anymore. I keep wanting to say his name was Trent Reznor, but I know that's not it. But Trench Coat
Reynolds. Trench Reynolds.
Trench Reynolds. He was actually very active and being totally against them being released. And I just thought it was kind of a crazy position. But I ended up going and looking at all those legal documents that were, part of that whole trial, and now I got doubts. I got doubts.
I have no idea which way to go, to be quite honest with you. Because I read through those same documents, and I looked at both sides of the story, and I still have no fucking idea.
And I am no expert on that whole thing, and so I'm going to come off sounding very ignorant with some of this because some of it's hazy now. But I do remember that the one thing that I had the biggest issue with, and it wasn't. What was that kid? They kept saying he was retarded, but you could see him. And
The slow one.
Yeah, he may be book stupid, but he wasn't retarded by no means. But
No, he wasn't. He had a low IQ.
yeah,
LD.
right. But they were making it sound like he could barely wipe his own ass, in the
Right.
documentary.
Right.
Probably so. Till he was like 16.
He was a little,
Poor father. Mother.
he was a little stupid.
Right, but
Okay.
that wasn't even the one that brought up my doubt. Although I thought that was disingenuous the way they portrayed him as he was some fucking turd sucking retarded person, and he
Oh,
wasn't.
Shitting all over himself, huh?
No, he wasn't like that at all. He was just kind of dumb. But it wasn't
Right.
even that. That was just the part during the documentary where I was just always kind of like, it was some of the evidence that they don't talk about in the documentary that they had that it doesn't. something's just not right, I guess is what I'm saying. So anyway, one of these days we should probably go back and look at that again. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I think some people would probably be interested in
Absolutely.
that. I think the majority of people truly believe that those three were innocent and deserve to have been let out. And I'm not saying they don't; they could be. I'm not. I'm just saying I'm not on either side anymore. I can't say that they were guilty, and I can't say they were innocent. There was just a lot of weird stuff with
Correct.
that.
That's where I'm standing. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, I didn't mean to get on that tangent for whatever reason. The next story that was up was the man accused of prostituting his 7-year-old daughter. And thank you to Caustic for actually coming out of retirement for a little bit and writing this up because I was just not having I wasn't having good luck writing anything this week. This is the one out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I don't have a video for this, but I do have a nice, beautiful picture of the guy.
The one you have already is good enough. Wow.
I'm not sure if we're seeing the same
There he is.
things, Pagan.
There they are. This is who are these guys' names?
There's a bit of a delay. Let me just say, there's a bit of a delay for us.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
Well, their picture's up now.
okay, there we go.
This was the one out at New Mexico. It was another one of those couples. We actually got 2 of these stories this week with this couple. What were you seeing?
Just
Well,
the dad.
I saw a mugshot of a guy.
I saw shrunken heads.
Well, I'm just looking on the. I'm just looking on the side screen on the website.
This is going to be very problematic for me with this YouTube.
Well, you know what I could do? What I could do is tell you to divert your eyes. Do not look at the screen.
I'm trying to get to the web.
Maybe I should distort the video so you can't see it real good. You just know it's playing something.
Well, the thing is, we could be talking about one of the goriest frickin' stories on this site, and if there's shrunken heads, I'm gonna giggle.
Yeah, there's nothing cuter than a shrunken head.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, and speaking
Oh,
of,
look how cute.
well, speaking of those commercials here, these commercials here, and let me tell you the shit that I went through to get this put together because I was so afraid of copyright strikes. I went through an hour and a half of 1950s commercials and edited out every single time a brand name was shown. Now, that may have nothing to do with a copyright strike whatsoever, but I did do that. So I watched an entire hour and a half of 1950s commercials, and what a fucked up time that was. I mean, I know.
Clorox is the brand if you want to make your shirts white again.
Well, I know back then everything was probably new and revolutionary the way they would do commercials, but when you actually have to sit and watch them now, to see how cliched and just absolute blatant they were on tricking or trying to convince somebody to buy something, man, that was torture. Although I will say they had great toys back then still.
And now I want a cigarette because there's a guy smoking.
Toys? How did we get the great toys?
They had
toy commercials.
Yeah, a good 30 minutes straight of toy commercials, but they had some pretty good toys back then. I didn't realize back in the 50s at least, they were really, really big. Oh, well, of course, the war stuff. They were real big on selling weapons to kids. And one of the funny ones, and I'm sure you'll see it pop up here and there eventually, one of the funny ones were these guns that look so real that these kids are running around in a park and they're shooting them everywhere. And, of course, back in the 50s, they actually shot projectiles as well, which I don't know if any of you younger people realize that pretty much all of our toys, all the way up until the late 70s, early 80s, would shoot projectiles. And I'm talking little ones, not like Nerf gun stuff, but like spaceships.
Little
Like
plastic
dark.
BBs.
They would shoot, and the guns that would shoot little plastic discs, and they had all kinds of shit. But the one that killed it for everybody was the Battlestar Galactica toy. That was the one that put the end to all that. I don't know if you remember that, James, but that was it was either it was one of the ships from Battlestar Galactica, either the Cylon ship or one of the good guy ships. But some kid choked to death on one of the projectiles that came out of that, and then after that, they stopped all that crap.
Yeah, I kind of remember it.
Anyway, back to these 2 idiots. This is from oh, but that's what I was getting at. Sorry about that. That back in those days, they of course sold a shitload of war toys. You know, really cool ones like big ass machine guns with tripods that you actually fed the bullets through with a battery powered loader and all kinds of weird shit they would sell these kids back then. But one of them was also the commercial where the kids are running around with these realistic looking guns. They're watching TV and it's like a Dick Tracy type character, and he looks at the screen and he's like, "What's up, kid?" And he throws the gun and it comes through the screen and the kid has it. And then they flip the channel and it's a cowboy with a lever action rifle, and he's like, you know, "Hey, fuck you, kid, take this," and he throws it through the TV and the kid grabs it. And then they go run out and they're shooting the guns and they're running around and these cops come running up on them. And then the commercials, the cops taking the guns and laughing and looking at it and pointing it and remarking on how realistic it looked. And I'm like, well, you know, how times have changed when it comes to that kind of stuff.
And then it didn't show like an Al Capone guy go, "Hey, copper!"
Right. No, but they did have those types of guns on there. They had some pretty awesome gun stuff and space stuff. They really liked the 1950s. Were really into the space rockets and shit. Anyway, Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is where a homeless couple are both behind bars for forcing their 7-year-old daughter to perform sex acts, pickpocket, panhandle, and heels. That's not funny. That's not funny.
That's really not funny.
It was not the panhandle and heels. It was just the way that was worded was just kind of funny. Like, why add that? Panhandle and heels and attend secret parties in exchange for drugs and money. Now, these aren't the only couple on here for doing this week, which is crazy. And we do get these. This is not very shocking, at least to me. I mean, it's shocking that somebody would do it, but I meant as far as a subject. I mean, we get these all the time. It says the girl and her 8-year-old brother, who went to the same school, would often show up unkempt or would fall asleep during class. The school was aware that the parents, Terry Lee Sanchez and James Stewart Sr., who you're looking at on the screen right now, were known to be occasionally homeless. And I guess it was in November of last year, the girl's teacher noticed she was excessively unkempt and smelled of urine. She led her into the bathroom to put her in fresh clothing and clean her up. And it was at that point she noticed dried blood in her panties. Wow. That's when the teacher notified the school, contacted police, and the Child Protective Services. So, oh wow, it just gets worse. They said both the principal and the teacher noted noted an additional incident where the girl was dropped off at school in an unfamiliar vehicle wearing high heels and appeared to have had her hair and makeup professionally done. In their words, in their words, they described her as being made up, overtly sexually provocative, and age inappropriate. So they dressed her up like a whore.
Yeah.
Ooh, how crazy is that? As if that was the John that dropped the 8-year-old off at school after he was done. Is that not crazy?
That's just so icky to even think about it. John dropping an 8-year-old off at school. That's gross.
Yeah, no, that's pretty crazy. The girl told investigators that her mother would take her to hustle alone while dressed up in high-heeled shoes and makeup. She was forced to go with her mother to special parties where she was left alone while her mom became inebriated. The secret parties turned out to be the strip club where Sanchez worked as a dancer. That bitch you see on the screen right there worked at a strip club. So they really should give the name out. That chick, they should have gave the name to the strip club, man, so to give it wide berth.
Why you think they use dark lighting?
Oh, that's very true. The report, but they'd also have to give me like gallons of free alcohol. The report also alleges that the father encouraged her to pickpocket because it was easy for her to do so since her hands were so small. Both have been arrested and charged with human trafficking, criminal sexual assault of a minor, abuse of a child, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and promoting prostitution.
You skipped completely over what they had to eat for dinner. I am just in.
Oh, I totally missed it. So here we go.
I'm grossed out.
It says, is it the interview part? It says, it was during an interview with the children that investigators learned that the children ate infrequently, and when they did, it consisted of beans and ketchup. That's not funny.
Wow.
It's just some of these word phrasings, man.
Beans and
Yeah,
ketchup.
beans and ketchup. They also learned that the girl's father would force her to touch the genitals of men and women she describes as dad's friends, and that she did not enjoy performing these acts and was scared someone would touch her parts. Stewart would receive weed and pipes and other stuff in exchange. So yeah, they were just basically prostituting. They were her pimp, I guess, would be the more accurate term.
Wow. That's unreal. But
I can remember certain things when we were kids. Some of the kids we grew up with, we always back in the day, and we are older, but back in the day there were two types of kids in the neighborhood. Well, actually three. The normal ones, that was what we considered ourselves, and the fact that you kind of grew up in that neighborhood with your parents. Then you had the kid from a divorce, which was actually back then kind of rare. In fact, we only had one, right? One kid in our entire neighborhood was from a divorced, was being raised by a single.
two.
Um,
There was
I-
another one at the end. Remember?
oh, you're right. Holy shit, you're right. But anyway, it was more of a rarity than it is
but
now.
very rare.
It was very rare. But then you had the third type of kid, and that was what we called the renters. And those were the kids whose families were normally very poor and were just renting a house in the neighborhood. And boy, I mean, I can remember some, and I know you know who I'm talking about, but there was a family that lived at the end of our street that you would never convince me that there wasn't something going on in that house like this kind of crap.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a distinct possibility that could have been happening because of what we know. And we
Yeah.
can get into that if you want to, but
Well,
it's
no.
pretty detailed, right?
Yeah. We don't have, as long as we don't mention no names or anything like that. But I don't know if you're talking about who we're talking about. But we did have. And,
Well, we'll call them what we call them, fish family.
Yes, the Fish family. Yes,
Was that their last name?
No, it was a description of something else entirely. But yeah, they were
Okay.
they were the Fish family. But yeah, and I'm sure everybody's had these or dealt with these types of situations where you may have had a family that just did not fit in the neighborhood. Now, and back in the day, of course, we're talking. This was not the norm whatsoever. I mean, at least it wasn't for us back when we were kids. I mean,
Well, I would have to say a clock on the stove full of cockroaches would not be the norm.
no.
Ew.
And we're talking and of course I don't like talking about my personal life whatsoever, but I mean I will wholeheartedly admit that I was luckier than most in regards to where
You got a fucking allowance.
well we didn't
Yeah, Chris.
we didn't have a silver spoon born in our mouths by any means, but we were in the upper middle class area when
Upper echelons.
well, it was a very Goonies type of lifestyle. I look back on our childhood very very fondly. I had a blast all the way up. I mean, all the way through my teen years and I mean, I have absolutely no complaints aside from the standard boredom that you would experience back in those days. And I did not like school, but
Here.
other than that, everything when I watch movies like The Goonies or any type of 80s film or Stranger Things, stuff like that, it really, really echoes and brings back a lot of nostalgia for exactly how I grew up. And
How
then if
shit used to be.
well, rose-colored glasses and all that,
Yeah, right.
So, but and if I watch any movie that deals with any type of and there's not a lot of them, but if I watch one in particular, is Dazed and Confused, and I'm sure everybody's seen that movie. If you haven't, I mean, why have you not seen that movie? But it was based a decade before our time frame in that same general age group that's focused on in that movie, but it was almost completely identical. My whole point in bringing all that up is that families like this, or including these kids we're talking about now, or the Fish family, were not the norm. I mean, we rarely came into contact with families like that, and unfortunately, especially when you're talking about kids, there was little to no empathy whatsoever. In fact, it was completely non-existent. They were definitely targeted. You ever look back on that stuff and like feel like shit because now that you're an adult and you're looking, wow, these kids had no control over the way they were living, and then they would come outside for some type of, escape to get away from the shit they were living in, and all they ran into was us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, I didn't think about it until just now.
Now I always thinking about
now
that
I feel
stuff.
fucking horrible.
Well, a lot of it's been because of not only just having my own kid, and the stuff that you go through when you have your own kid and you start getting a shifting perception on things, including empathy, which was a new one for me. But it was a lot of these stories that we've written, over the years, because we've been doing this now for 14 years. And over the course of writing all these stories, especially with kids like this, I'm sitting here thinking, all right, this kid, when she went home, she was touching grown men's dicks and God knows what else she was being forced to do. And then she would come to school looking like a prostitute. Were the kids nice to her? Hell no.
Oh, they weren't.
Hell no. No, they were probably brutal. Brutal. And, so anyway, of course, you're never going to change that. Kids have zero empathy when it comes to that type of stuff. They just do. I don't think their brains are formed enough to even know what that is or experience it whatsoever. Maybe you could do it like if you took their favorite puppy and stomped it in front of them, they would feel some empathy in some way. But I don't think they would be able to transfer that over to a peer.
Which just adds to the torment.
Yeah, so anyway, I think
Right?
back on that stuff, and I think about that family in general, because I think they may have gotten it the worst. And there was 3 of them, three girls, I think, right? There was 3 girls in that family.
Yeah, I don't even know if there was a boy.
I don't remember one.
I don't remember. If it was, he was younger than them.
You know what?
Because
It's probably good. It was probably good they were female, though, because they may have gotten everything that a brother may have gotten, except for they didn't get their ass kicked, ever, that I know of. I mean, we wouldn't have done that. That is also another thing that it doesn't... and correct me if I'm wrong. Do you not see a lot of videos, man, where dudes don't have any problems whipping up on any type of female? Because I know back when we were kids, that absolutely was not done. And then if you did, do
Yeah, that
anything
didn't
like
fly
that,
very well.
no, I mean even, and I'm talking about even if it was a girlfriend. And I remember one guy in particular. He was guilty of doing that, but you were practically shunned if you were accused of doing any type of beating up on your girlfriend or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
But and maybe it's like that now. I don't know. Who knows? Damn kids today.
Back in my day.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and that's the most depressing thing, is that I've now entered into that phase where I actually have
Isn't
to.
it gross?
It's saddening, just how quickly we're going to be dead.
Hey, that's morbid.
Jesus.
All right, here's another one here. This is the one we talked about last week, and there's not really any anything that has came up on this. I've looked and I haven't found anything on it. This was that mother in North Dakota who killed her 3 kids before she killed herself. I don't know if you remember us talking about that, but
The woman who stole 1.2 million?
no. She's still the #1 story, but it's not her. No, this was her name was Astra Volk. Astra Volk. Hold on, I may have a video I may have a video for this one. Let me see here.
We just had all the cousins over.
No, this is the one that
New Year's Eve party for all the kids.
Oh, you
Those
son of a
kids
bitch!
Start playing a classic game.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
I did.
Okay. That was there's websites that where you cannot stop a video from auto playing.
Good evening, everyone.
Here
We
you
begin
go.
tonight with new and disturbing information released by police today on the deaths of a Grand Forks mother and her 3 young children.
They pretty much go over exactly what we already
Police are trying to
talked
piece
about.
together the puzzle. Why did a Grand Forks mom shoot and kill her children in the middle of the night?
Because they
As
were
the
asleep.
memorial continues
couldn't
to
run.
grow outside 1006 South 12th Street. So do the
I'm watching
questions
2 guys
about
smoking
why.
while this was playing.
It's not easy for anybody, and no amount of training is going to prepare you to handle a call like this.
What police know is how. They say 35-year-old Astra
Yeah,
Volk
but
shot and killed
that's
her
another
3
thing I'm
children.
curious about, because that's something I'll
6-year-old
have to
Ariana.
set too while we're testing things out. So when I just played that video just now, right? I know you're hearing things you're hearing things from my end, because you got your
Correct.
sound down on YouTube, right?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So that may work out fine. Because there could be some delay issues that I need to work out as well. But I'll go back and watch.
Oh, there's a delay.
No, I meant like if you're actually watching the video live.
Okay.
Right. See what I'm saying?
No, not really. But all I know is when the video starts, when they start talking, I'm still in one of the 1950s commercials.
Right, but you still have the sound down on the YouTube video.
Yes.
Right, because there's a delay between what you're hearing on my end from what they're seeing on their end.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
Okay.
I think it's fine. It's just going to be a little bit confusing for you if you're watching the YouTube thing.
Yeah, and so if people hear me laughing, it's really not at the story, it's at the
No,
commercial.
you're laughing at something inappropriate.
On a 10-year-old Aiden
Well, that's a
and
good
14-year-old
possibility.
Tyler as they slept. She then turned a gun on herself. Police would not comment how many times the kids were shot. They said there was no indication they had a chance to escape their killer mom.
You know, it's difficult to
Their
tell.
killer
when it's
mom.
planning when-
Wow.
Based
He's
on
good.
the evidence, mainly by going through phone calls, text messages, and emails, the triple murder happened between 1:30 and 4:30 last Thursday morning, just hours before the bodies were discovered after the kids did not show up at school. No suicide note was found inside the home.
Yeah, and I think they bring this up in the video, is the fact that they were poor, and she had put up a GoFundMe. You guys don't remember this? She'd put up some type of a GoFundMe asking for money for medical bills because she had mental issues, her kid had mental issues, and she worked full time, and it wasn't enough to pay for all the bills and all the medical treatment they had. And it was only like a few days later where she actually did this. So, and I know that the GoFundMe had already been taken down by the time that I went looking for this, I think. But there was a cached version of it still out there that I was able to see it, and take some quotes from. But they hadn't, at the time it had got cached, they hadn't raised a cent. And that's the crazy thing. I guess what else can you possibly do? If you have no family, if you're in a new area, in a new neighborhood, and you don't have a lot of friends, and you put up a GoFundMe like that, and then absolutely you don't get 1 cent, I imagine that.
Well, then lie and say you want a boob job.
Yeah, or do what that, or what about that couple that had that kid here recently where they did the big cancer scam that we've seen before?
Again, yeah.
Right, but the difference with this one was, and I think we have had one other one that did this, but they actually convinced that kid that he was dying of cancer, I think, too. I mean, I think he thought,
Yep,
and
he
his
did.
And his uncle. Isn't that fucking crazy, man? I mean, it's one thing to run a scam on and they got thousands of dollars on that scam, but I guess to keep the scam alive, they had this kid thinking he was going to die.
Shitty ass.
The sad
parents.
part is the kid didn't get a dime.
He got some stuff because he got to go out and do some football or some baseball things or something. He got invited to some sports stuff.
Gotcha.
So, but still, I'm sure he would rather had not done any of that and realized he didn't have cancer and that his parents were pieces of shit,
Of course.
who are now going to go to jail. Hold on.
Quite a bit of evidence. I wouldn't call it an overall.
What they do, shave his head in the middle of
We're definitely able to handle. It's just going to take some time.
If you would have given him a minute, maybe it would have went that far.
One avenue being explored is the mental health of Astra Volk. Just a week before the triple murder, she made a plea on a GoFundMe page to get money for psychiatric hospital stays for herself and her boys.
There was some mental health issues at play. That certainly may have played into it and may be a portion of the why answers that we're looking for.
Another key to the investigation, where did Astra Volk get the gun?
That evil gun. Where could she have possibly gotten a gun? Where could she have gotten a firearm?
Fucking anywhere.
Walmart.
Yeah. Hold on. Let's see what the police say about that.
Friends tell us she was afraid of them. The ATF has been called in to help answer this question, especially with
I've heard people say that before, and I'm not saying I doubt that. Where somebody says, "Oh, they were afraid of guns," or they. I never understood anybody being afraid of a gun. I mean, afraid of one being pointed at my face, yes, but not just as an object. I never really understood that too much. I mean, I guess I can see why. I mean, but there's lots of things in your house. It's like, oh no cutlery, no cutlery in my house at all. My wife, she's scared of knives.
Exactly.
They stab people, you know. A lot of people die from being stabbed.
Right. I know one personally.
Oh yeah, you do. That's true. Yeah, that's right. I think out of every one of us, unless there's something about you I don't know, Jaded, Pagan actually does have a true crime story in his immediate recent family where he had lost a loved one over, I think it was a domestic, correct?
It was domestic, yes. It was a 73, and my aunt was arguing with her second husband, and she was washing dishes at the time, and during the argument, he evidently took she happened to have the butcher knife at the time cleaning it, and he took it from her and jabbed her right in her aorta and pulled it straight out, and she bled to death.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, 1973.
Yeah, it was so crazy about that is we knew each other back then, I think. Or maybe it could
have... I was 5. I remember it very clearly. I remember hearing my grandmother. It just happened to be this time of year, basically. It could have been Mother's Day, 1973, for all I know. But my grandmother was visiting my mother, and my other mom's sister was there, and their sister that morning got stabbed to death.
Yep, crazy. I remember you talking about that when we were
yeah.
But didn't really hit you much when you were a kid as much.
The only part it hit me was when I was in the backyard and I was out playing with my cousins, and of course back then, you know, we had one air conditioner unit in the window. I don't even know if we had one at that time, but if we did, it was in a window back in my parents' bedroom. So I remember the rest of the house, the windows were open. It was a nice, you know, spring day, and the weather was fine. And I heard horrific screams, and we were playing, and I was like, "What's going on?" And you know, then we found out later.
Oh, that was when your mom found out.
Yep, phone call came in.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? You had your aunt stabbed to death, and that didn't scare me nearly as much as the story I think that came from your mother, or maybe somebody on your side of the family about rawhide and bloody bones.
Oh yeah, my grandmother's thing. She'd tell us when we get a little naughty.
Yeah, they had this thing, and I actually looked it up, and it is an urban thing that's told in certain parts of the United States, but it's some type of man or monster named
he's mixed.
Yeah, he's a rawhide and bloody bones, swallow you up and eat you whole.
He's a manster.
Yeah, he'll grease your ears and swallow you whole.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it sounds like something from the South, you know. It was like a perfect Southern boogeyman. Rawhide and bloody bones.
Right. Yeah.
He'll grease your ears?
Yeah, grease your ears and swallow you whole.
Take some lard and just wipe it all over your... I guess all over your friggin' head. And just suck you up. You know? Take you straight down.
That's how determined this monster was. If he could not fit your ass in his mouth, he would take the time to lube you up with lard. And then do it.
No doubt didn't need a knife.
But yeah, when I was a kid, I always remembered that. I always thought that somebody should make a stupid-ass movie back then. I always thought that would be good. And then they ended up coming out with Rawhead Rex. Clive Barker actually wrote a story called Rawhead Rex that they made a movie out of. And it has a scene where this Rawhead Rex had this giant-ass fucking mouth. And he actually, if I'm not mistaken, if it's not in the movie, there's definitely pictures of it where he's got a guy's head in his mouth. And it always reminded me of Rawhide Bloody Bones.
Yeah. Rawhide and bloody bones, you know? It'll suck your fucking skin right off.
Well, I remember too. I had cousins in Illinois, and they had their own rawhide bloody bones, and it was a creature that would jump from roof to roof, and he could get you that way.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and he freaked me out. He was older than we were, and he was trying to scare me and my brother and my two younger cousins, and he was telling us ghost stories. But one of them was this creature that could jump from roof to roof. That he swears to God was true, of course. But if you if you go online, there's websites that track urban legends and where they try to figure out where they originated from or where they came from or how they come to be, regardless. Because back before the internet, when we were kids, there would be stories that we would pass along to each other that you could talk to somebody in a completely different state, a cousin or whatever, and they had their own version of that exact same story. But anyway, that creature that jumped from roof to roof actually had a name that I can't remember anymore. I keep wanting to say Sleestack, but that's Land of the Lost. But it was something like that. So it could have been like Sleeker or something like that. But anyway, that being said, let's finish this video up real quick so I can shut it down. I just want to find out if they say anything about the gun that they can't believe that she had because she was afraid of them.
With her documented mental health problems.
We're working with the ATF to determine that, to see if she was prohibited or not.
Police say it will be...
Because that if there was a law for her to where she should not have had that gun, there's no possible way she could have gotten it. Or would have, because it would have been illegal.
Correct.
It would have been illegal.
This is correct.
That's crazy.
So it's killing all your fucking kids.
Hey man, we're not talking about that. We're talking about gun control here, and there needs to be more laws. And that's why I know that this lady, she had to have had it legally, because there's no way in hell she would have broken the law. None.
You're probably right.
They can attempt to close the case, but admit they may have to close it without all of the answers.
We're working diligently.
That's enough of that. She killed her kids for whatever reason they don't know. But that does bring up something. Have they finally cut down on the whole gun control stuff? Have we now made it past the 3-week mark, past a tragedy, before they finally forgot about that, and we wait for the next tragedy to come across before that comes back up? I haven't been keeping up with it.
I haven't either. I can quit paying attention.
They're still working on things.
I just want to ask. Well, I really don't care because I don't want to argue with anybody about it right at the moment. But
I really would like to ask exactly what laws that would you like put in place that aren't already there, because I was watching a pretty good argument. You know what? I don't want to get into this, but I guess what it's leading into is the fact is we just want common sense gun laws is basically translates to we want to take your guns away. That's basically what that's translating into. But
you could probably spend a 2 or 3 hour live stream on that discussion alone.
Probably, and we'll save that for another day. The next one, and I may skip it because I don't think there was really much to say about this one. Oh no, this one is the other lady. This is oh no, we're going to skip the kids that threw a puppy off a tower. If you didn't read about it, 2 kids threw a puppy off a tower.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad what they did, but there's not really much to say.
Like a water tower?
Yeah, like a Firewatch tower.
No.
Yeah, whatever.
What kind of puppy?
It didn't say, actually.
See, journalism sucks because I'd really kind of like to know what kind of puppy.
Yeah, they don't say. But no, this is about Morgan Summerlin. She is the mom that pled guilty to letting men rape her little girls for cash. 2 sisters, ages 5 and 6. So we got another pimp parent.
Maybe her GoFundMe didn't work.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to this chick too. Hold on, I'm gonna get a picture of her. Well, no, before I do, she got busted. Well, let me see here. A mother has pled guilty to pimping out her 2 daughters, ages 5 and 6, to men in exchange for cash and drugs, right? And one of the men that she would let have sex with her daughters was a 78-year-old man called Richard Office, and his nickname, or what the kids said they called him, was Pop. So I want you to see, Pop, and he doesn't look real happy about having his mugshot taken at 78 years old. You should see it come up here in a second, but that's Morgan Summerlin on the left, and of course Pop on the right. And according to the girls, the mother would take the girls to Office's home, And she would stay in the living room, and Office would take the girls to his bedroom where he tongue kissed both girls in his bedroom and then raped the younger sister while the older sister rubbed his feet.
Oh, no. Oh.
Is that Pop with the puffy eyes?
Yep, that's Pop.
And the other chick is Mom?
That's Mom.
Oh, happy Mother's Day.
Well, she doesn't have them at this point, but yeah, still, yeah, you're right.
Hopefully she'll get what she deserves.
And the reason why this came up was because, and the reason why she got busted is she went to jail or was in jail for something unrelated, and they had been put into the custody of some legal guardians, and they immediately told this person what their mom had been making them do, and of course she went immediately to police. And the mother wasn't the only one arrested. Let's see here. Here are the charges here. She entered a guilty plea for rape and trafficking a person for sexual servitude, cruelty to children, and enticing a child for indecent purposes. Her sentence comes up on June 4th. Now, for Office, he got found guilty, and he was sentenced to life behind bars without parole after being found guilty of rape, child molestation, trafficking a person for sexual servitude, enticing a child for indecent purposes, and sexual battery. So he'll die in prison. He'll be around for, 5 more years?
Probably like next week.
Yeah. But there was another man that was involved, and he also got busted as well. Another man that she was taking these girls to. And he was found guilty of pretty much the exact same things that Office got charged with, but his sentence was only 25 years behind bars with life on probation. So I don't know why Pop's got life, which I guess even if he'd have gotten 25 years, that's life anyway for him. He's
probably because he made him rub his nasty old man feet.
Is it bad? And I know this is going to sound bad, but is it bad that I would think that, like, if somebody came to me and said, look, here's the deal, and like, let's just say some type of a demon or an angel or something comes down with magic powers or whatever, and said, look, here's the deal, and I don't have time to explain this to you, but you've got two choices, all right? You can either be fucked by this 76-year-old man named Pops, or you can rub his feet. I will have to sit there and think about it. I still would have to sit here and think about it.
Yeah, because he's looking at you going, make sure you get that big toe.
Yeah, and work on that bunion over there on the right.
Yeah. And that big toe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking vomit like in any minute, any second now.
That's what I'm saying.
Got something in my big toe.
Well, that's what I'm saying is they're both horrible decisions, but I would really have to think about it. I think I could actually get over the rape part over rubbing his feet faster. This is as a dude, though. This is as a dude. I'm seriously saying that I think I could actually get over being anally raped by a 78-year-old man than I would get over ever having to rub his feet. I think rubbing his feet, I would never, ever, ever forget that. I could block out the anal rape part, but the rubbing the feet part is going to come out every single time.
I'm going with the big toe. Because I ain't seen him smile yet. I think this is what he's going to look like if I do his big toe.
That's what it's going to look like if you ain't doing it right. He's just going to be looking at you like that.
Yeah, I'm not doing it right.
Well, see, the way I think is, it's like, okay, so I had surgery, right, where I had a what do you call it, hernia.
Oh God, please.
No. Let me get to the point. I'm not going to get into the surgery. I wasn't awake for it. I didn't see it. But I'm saying is that you're always kind of conscious about wherever you had an injury, you know. And so I guess what I'm thinking of is, and I'm just trying to think of this logically in a very illogical situation. It's my butthole. I'm not going to be doing anything with it.
Oh.
Right? But my hands, every time I eat a hamburger or anything, if my hands even come close, they touch this man's feet. Then that's what I would think about for the rest of my life. Till my dying day, every time my hands came close to my face is that they were rubbing on Pop's feet.
Right.
So that's why that's my logic behind taking a flaccid dick in the butt over rubbing some elderly ass bunion feet.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the story on this whole group of people. Oh, and what I was going to bring up is Summerlin. She, I did some looking for her on something. Oh, I wanted to see if I could find out why she went to jail for. And I don't know for a fact this is why she was in jail and why the kids went to this legal guardian that started this whole thing. But I did find another newspaper article from 2017 where she crashed into 2 cars because she was under the influence of Xanax, I think it was, with her kids in the car. So I think that's what started this whole chain of events was that wreck. So she's actually been in the paper before. We just didn't see it because we wouldn't have reported on anything like that.
That would have been boring anyway, so. Oh, Jesus.
Let's see here.
Oh, I think I broke my spleen.
That's some local yokel news there.
Yeah. The other one was the boy that got electrocuted hiding in the dryer. You guys are more than welcome to go to the website and read about that if you haven't heard about it. But the broad strokes are a 10-year-old boy was playing hide and go seek with some kids at an apartment complex. Excuse me. And he got electrocuted in like an industrial dryer you'd find in a apartment complex, laundromat or whatever. And I looked, and there's been absolutely no update whatsoever on that story on how that happened, which has been our biggest question: is how the hell does that even happen? I still want details if he got electrocuted behind the dryer, because if you're playing hide and seek, I could see a kid crawling behind the dryer and maybe touching some of the electrical components behind the dryer. But they didn't clarify on was he behind the dryer or in the dryer. But the news...
I heard he was in the dryer.
Well, that's what the news keeps saying, that he was in the dryer. And he very well may have been. We've actually reported a bunch of times of kids dying from playing hide and go seek and crawling into something. But they usually suffocated to death. It wasn't an electrocution.
If they got electrocuted, that was due to the fact that it wasn't grounded, correct?
Well, no, I still don't even understand that part, because if that was the case, he would have got and of course, like I'm an expert electrician, I have no idea what I'm about to say here, but you would think is, okay, if the dryer wasn't grounded right, and he got electrocuted inside the dryer, then wouldn't he gotten electrocuted when he opened it, when he touched it in any fashion?
Sure, and I'm thinking, like, why wouldn't somebody else have been electrocuted?
Right.
That?
So that's what I'm saying. I'm just very... And
it
really doesn't make that much of a difference. The story still is a tragedy that a 10-year-old kid died playing hide and go seek, in that manner. It sucks. But I'm still just very confused on exactly how it happened, and I hope eventually that they'll release the details on that, which sometimes they do, especially if a lawsuit comes up. Because I think with that, with the water slide incident where the kid was decapitated by the safety netting over the water slide, a lot of the details on that didn't really come from any type of news or police reports. A lot of the details came, I think, after the lawsuits were filed. Because then I think it's public. So,
okay.
Anyway, the next story was the one this was the teen. This happened in England. This was the teen who dressed as a clown when she stabbed her boyfriend. The crazy chick. There's nothing else on that story either. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And let's see. The other one was the and there's still no stories on this one, but we'll go ahead and play this one. You know what? While I play this, if you could look up for me, Jaded, real quick, if anything ever became of the story of the boy that got his ass beat in daycare, and they were alluding to that it was one of the daycare workers. And the daycare worker was saying that it was a 2-year-old girl that did the stuff. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
The name would be, if you're not on the front page already.
Which I am.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to play this real quick.
Lori Boykin,
no, I'm not. I hate ads, man. I mean, I really do. I was going to play the video on it, but it really doesn't matter. Maybe I will. Maybe I can find this real quick. But for anybody who didn't read that or know about this story, oh yeah, right there's his face. Holy shit, he did get the crap beat out of him, didn't he? His all tongues hanging out of his mouth and everything. Let's see if I can play this time.
And the big story.
Yeah, it'll let me play it. Yeah, here we go.
Right now, it's a Fox 59 exclusive. A local mother outraged after finding
I hate everything about the web sometimes.
this little boy, her son, beaten by someone at his daycare. And tonight, she is talking only to Fox 59. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Fanchon Stinger.
And I'm Dan Spieler. Tonight, that one-year-old child is still in the hospital. Doctors are trying to figure out just how badly he was hurt.
Fox 59's Tanae Howard joining us now with that mother. She talked with her earlier today, and she is here with her story. Tanae.
Yeah, Dan and Fanchon, as I talked to that mother, you could still hear baby Jessie screams in the background. She says she got that phone call from the daycare just a few hours after she dropped him off, and her older son is there as well.
What are you doing? Changing the
and
oil in your car?
I warn you that some of the images that she saw when she walked through that door, they are heartbreaking and very hard to look at.
Now it's like I gotta be a stay-at-home mom and not do the things that I want to do to advance their life, to give them the best in order to make sure they're taken care of and not neglected.
This is what Tiffany Griffin saw Monday afternoon when she walked into the Kitty Gardens daycare on 38th Street. Her son...
Oh, damn it. It won't let me pause the damn screen on that kid's face.
There's a lot of talking going on right now.
1-year-old Jesse barely recognizable after someone attacked him.
I hear my son screaming from outside. Me and his dad, we hear him screaming. So someone was going there. He's in a high chair, and both his eyes busted, his lips swollen, top and bottom, scratches all through his face, cuts, blood everywhere.
Tiffany admits to punching the 22-year-old daycare worker out of anger. The police report lists that worker as the suspect, but the employee told Tiffany another child assaulted Jesse.
There's no way a 2-year-old, and that baby was small, and she didn't look like she was the violent type. And her mom said she wasn't the violent type. She said
that baby's mom?
Yeah, and that mom said that scratches her baby might do, but when she seen that picture, she started crying and said her baby wouldn't do anything like that.
All right, so that was that story.
No charges have been filed.
Yeah, because I'm starting to wonder if, you know what I'm saying, if it was the kid.
The prosecutor said the evidence did not warrant charges and said the child's injuries were consistent with daycare staff members' account of the events.
See, because a lot of people were saying that, you know, that there's no way. They were ready to string that daycare worker up, you know. And because they couldn't believe that a 2-year-old could do something like that to a baby, and I beg to differ. They very well can. And again, there's no charges been filed, so we don't know who did what. But you would think that at least in this stage of the game, since we first reported on, I mean, this happened on May 1st. That if a daycare worker did that to a baby, and that baby's pretty jacked up. You would think they'd press charges by now, right?
They said something's missing.
Right.
The prosecutor said it's just not enough to say the child went in fine and came out bad. You've got to be able to argue, prove, show through some evidence that what happened was a result of an action or inaction by the facility. But the daycare center is closed and probably will remain so.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Huh. Wonder why they did that. Whatever. Then we had the woman that killed the baby with the enema. That's still number 2. You know what it could be? I think the reason why we may be having some repeats is... Oh, no. I just didn't get jack shit up this week. That's why. But the number 1 story... Not the newest story, but the number 1 story was that lady that ended up killing herself after getting busted stealing $1.2 million from her job.
Woo!
It's a lot
that
of
she
dough.
doesn't get to spend.
It's a lot of dough. But my question is, again, and I don't know if somebody, and there could have been updates to the story at this point, was how did that, well, I guess they did find out. I was about to say that, but that was a pretty good chunk of time between when she started stealing that money until she got caught. I mean, it was like, man, who's doing the books there?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But they did catch it, so I guess that's good. But wow, I mean, what kind of checks was she writing herself? I mean, if she was writing her little one, I mean, how many small checks would you have to write to yourself to total $1.2 million before somebody's going to see it? There was no end game to this. None. And of course, a lot of people are, oh, Jesus Christ. Windows 10, man. I just got an update notice. But I guess I should be glad it didn't restart the computer and do it on its own. But her and her husband had opened up a restaurant around that time frame when she was stealing all that money. So a lot of people, and myself included, alluded to the fact that she was stealing all this money for the restaurant, which ended up closing anyway. So, don't know.
Me either.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, there's not much else to update on it either. So, and then lastly, and we'll do this last story, and then we're done with at least for the stories for this week. And this was the, and man, I wish you could see, because the TV is black and white. This was the guy that was accused of shooting his teenage daughter's 2 dogs because she didn't do the dishes. And that's pretty much the story. This girl got in an argument with her dad, Jeffrey Don Edwards, because he had came home and she had not washed the dishes or cleaned the house, and he got pissed off and started throwing shit around. So she called her mom. I guess they're split, but she called her mom, who came and picked her up, and she stayed the night with her mom. And when she came back the next day, there was blood all over the house, and her 2 dogs were missing. And her uncle told her that her dad had shot the dogs as punishment for her not cleaning the house.
It's pretty fucking steep.
Yeah, that's a big one. And so police were able to follow some tire tracks from the home into the woods and were able to recover the corpses of Jessica, Dawn, and Duck. 2 very good-looking dogs.
Yeah, poor babies.
But Jeffrey says he didn't do that shit, that he was at work during that time, but 2 convenience store clerks came out and said that, well, he came in here bragging about it. Well, not bragging, he came in and told us that he had just shot his daughter's dogs because he was angry. And he didn't have any
Chapter 3 in the parenting book.
Yeah. But this guy, here, let me show you a picture of him real quick, because if I got one, yes, I do. You'll like this. Let me see if I can find him. That's him. Now, the TV's in black and white, so you can't really tell. Oh, you know what I can do? I'll do this. Let's see if this will work. I want you to see just how fucking red this cat is. And this is not me. This is the picture that came from all the different news sites. That is a red motherfucker. I mean, like tomato red. I mean, he's a redhead, and I get that. I mean, we had a buddy of ours.
Oh, wow.
I mean, we had a buddy of ours who would get pretty burned up in the sun, but this dude, it's everywhere. Look, his face, his ears are the same color as his lips.
And they're lopsided.
Yeah, that's a sign of what?
Uh-huh.
They are lopsided.
They are crooked as fuck. That is making my OCD itch.
Right, and just imagine when he goes sunglasses and shit. He's looking at that little mirror in a CVS. And they're lopsided.
Yeah. He has to put like washers. He has to put washers behind his ear to get the damn little arm up.
He is the poster child.
You know what?
For not fucking your sister.
I didn't notice it, really. I was so focused on how red he was, or is, I didn't notice just how lopsided his fucking ears are.
That's really bad.
I mean,
he
that
looks like
one...
an angry asshole.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He's the worst. He reminds me of that chick's... I don't know if it was his uncle or whatever. It was always drunk and trying to pick fights and stuff. Your ex-girlfriend's uncle.
Oh, yeah. Brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law. Oh, Jesus.
Brother-in-law. Brother-in-law.
But his ear, it looks like it's falling off his head.
Oh, yeah.
Just slowly sliding.
Yeah.
Like eventually it'll be right at his jawline there at the bottom. That's
He must have had a fucked up head when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe he got stuck in the birth canal.
Yeah. Ooh,
Yeah.
Speaking of, somebody had posted a story on our Facebook group. Speaking of birth canals, where I didn't post it because I can't remember where it was at. It wasn't here, and it happened a while back, and I think there was some type of lawsuit going on or whatever. But I don't know if you saw this, but this chick was there's a trial going on or something going on in regards to this chick that was giving birth to her kid, and it was breech, and the doctor. And I won't go through all the specifics because the end result's really where the subject is the doctor, for whatever reason, without giving her any type of pain pills or doing the C-section that they should have done for her, he tried to deliver the baby breech and pulled the baby out feet first, and they ended up decapitating that baby, and he pulled the body out, or I think it's a she maybe. Pulled the body out, and the baby's head was still inside of her, and they had to give her a C-section to take the head out. Did you read about that?
C-section? A little late for a fucking C-section, really, honestly.
Well, I don't think she could pass the head.
No, I didn't read about it.
I saw that, but it seems to me that is not the only story of that type that I've heard.
And I was going to say the same thing. I thought that we had something like this before, and I know it wasn't this story. It was a while back, but it was something weird like that. But I don't remember one ever where the head got left behind, and they had to actually go in and do the C-section they should have done to begin with, just to take the head out.
Right.
And they said that they actually sewed or put the baby's head back on the body just so she could be able to hold the baby before they took it away.
Well, that's sweet. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I just I couldn't imagine that. I mean, not even as a dude who, but just as a chick, that all of a sudden, I mean, at what point was she even told? I think she didn't even know exactly what had happened.
That had to suck for all parties.
Yeah, well,
Doc and Fam is alive.
Well, the doctor's in a lot of trouble, and I think that's the focus of this entire. I don't know if it was a lawsuit or something going on. I don't remember. I didn't go into all that, but yeah, I just thought that was crazy. I hadn't. Yeah, you can't miss it. I mean, if you put baby decapitated.
I found it.
Okay.
Trying to figure out where it happened at.
It wasn't here though.
Like I want to say it was India, but I don't know why. We're getting a lot of people submitting stories from India, and I don't normally do stories from there. India is one of those places like I don't know. India, nothing shocks me out of India. There's just certain countries where you get these really crazy stories, like with witch doctors or voodoo or something. I just don't usually do them just because. Now, if it happened like in Washington or in West Virginia, then it would actually be pretty crazy. But if you start saying, oh, some voodoo doctor did some weird voodoo thing and the person died from it, and you're like, oh, wow, that's crazy, and it says it comes out of India, I'm like, oh, okay.
I have no fucking idea. It just says Dundee. That doesn't sound like India to me.
I don't, and it may not be. But that's what a lot of the stories back in the news, right? Because there's some type of a lawsuit.
Oh, it happened in 2014, so maybe that is the same story that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I guess it could have been.
I keep thinking that was like last year, but yeah, I mean, I guess that is the story maybe we heard about. Now we're getting the actual details behind it.
Yeah, that could very well be, because to have that happen twice in a fucking lifetime would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, we've said that about a couple things.
Yeah, I need to learn to shut up sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it was just over in the UK. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that was pretty much the stories for the week. I think that in regards to testing some of the stuff, I've already seen a couple issues that I'm going to have to fix before we do the next podcast. And it's nothing on your guys' end. There's just a couple things I can make easier on my end. And one is the resolution of the videos. I think I've got something set wrong on my end that could help out with that, which I'll get that fixed too. But again, it shouldn't affect the audio. It should just affect the video. And since we're not actually playing much video, I don't think it's even going to be that big of a deal. But I'd still like to take care of any problems.
Well, I would like to apologize for the oil change.
Hey, what the hell was that?
I went to the mailbox.
Did you forget about the microphone?
Forgot I was live on the air.
But at least you didn't go to the bathroom.
No, didn't do that.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Well, I was going to end up see if anybody wanted to come on and take callers or whatever, but I think I might test that on our next one. I don't think I want to do that right now. So we could probably end this now if you want to, and then I can go back over some of the stuff during the week and see if I can get some stuff resolved. But I don't think it went that bad. It just felt like a normal ass podcast to me. It just had some other buttons I had to press, and other than that, that was about it.
Except nobody got booted out in the middle of a fucking conversation.
No, that's true too.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
And you didn't sound like a robot.
Well, we don't know yet. I don't know what I sounded like live, so we'll find out. But for anybody who tuned in for this test podcast, we appreciate it. For anybody who's listening to this after the fact, hopefully we're going to end up doing this on a weekly basis. The times may change a bit because we live in different time zones and have different things going on. But we're going to try to keep this at a weekly thing, and I guess we'll just refine stuff as we go. That's what we usually do anyway.
Hear, hear.
Yep, and now I just need to get some writers to help me put up some stories so we can keep the stuff populated. Right? Jaded?
I want to be a paperback writer.
No, she does not.
A blue screen writer.
You know, I'm thinking about it more recently than I have in the past few months, so that's a step forward.
That just means that you're getting bored with Fallout.
Oh no, don't say that. No, that's not happening. But no, I'm sitting here trying to think, well, how the hell are we going to put on a podcast if there's nothing to talk about?
Well, that's going to be a very big problem. I definitely need to get, I had talked about adding some stuff into the forums where the forums would actually populate the front page, right? They're basically called portals, but we're not getting into specifics. But it was basically going to be, I was going to just take a back seat and quit writing articles, except for every now and then, but then just let the forum articles fill up the front page, right? And the more I look at doing it, the more it feels like I'm admitting some form of defeat. And so I can't quite pull the trigger on it quite yet. I still think that I can figure out a way to get some articles up, and without it just being me. I think our biggest problem has been, and correct me if I'm wrong, but are the writers that we had that stuck around the longest, we didn't pull those people from Facebook, right? Those people came from our forums. Or did we get
forums and Twitter?
Twitter. Oh, Jesus Christ, I haven't used that in forever. I mean, it's automated. Yeah. It's totally automated. I don't even log into it anymore.
I went over there the other day and I was like, oh shit, I still have a Twitter. Damn.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's forums and Twitter.
All right. Well, yeah. I got to put some feelers out. If we can just get a couple people to alternate back and forth, and then where I can maybe just get one in a day. Then...
Oh my God, deja vu. Oh my God.
Why did I say this before?
This conversation all the fucking time. I mean, at least 3 times a year.
It's difficult.
It's not as easy as it used to be to get writers like we used to. I mean, we definitely get people who give it a shot or say they want to try, and then we set them up, and then they don't do anything.
Yeah, there's a problem right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably starts out great, and then.
Oh, it's just very frustrating because the time it takes me to set up the accounts, and then you're talking with like 8 people at one time, and then you're setting them up, and you're telling them what to do, what not to do,
Right.
And then
it takes a lot of commitment.
Well, I'm just saying you do all that, and in the time that I did all that, I could have wrote a story or 2 or 3, and then they don't write anything, and then it's just like Jesus Christ. I mean that's fine, but don't have me go through all that and then don't do anything.
Right, you invested in them, so to speak.
Yeah, just time,
exactly.
Time, but still.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's not like they were getting paid or anything, so it's kind of hard to bitch too much about it. But I don't know. I'm just the type of person. If I say that I'm going to do something, then I'll do it. And then if for whatever
don't.
But if I can't, I'll at least tell them. You know, I'm not going to leave them hanging. I've never left anybody hanging.
Yeah, you don't leave people hanging, man.
I don't.
Uh-huh.
I don't.
You say the funniest things.
I make it a point to always, because I'm a man of my word.
You do not want me to go through my list.
Pick just one thing.
Anytime you have to do anything that requires going to the post office.
Well, it's been a great podcast, and I cannot wait until we do this next week. I did totally forget about that, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Totally forgot about
so
it.
like I said.
Yeah. I can see how that came out fairly hypocritical from your end. I will get that sent out.
Okay.
I will get that sent out.
Oh, okay.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this now. Don't go anywhere quite yet, though. And later on, we'll have an outro of some type, so it doesn't have to end awkwardly. That's the only thing I hate about not having an outro. It's like when you're talking with your girlfriend, your new girlfriend, and you can't figure out how to hang up the fucking phone right.
You hang up first.
Right.
Yeah.
Ugh. No, even thinking about that now. That's
what I usually did.
It's so cringy. I've done that before. Anyway, all right, guys.
Yeah, then you both wake up and go, ooh.
We just slept together.
Yeah, we just slept together.
Yeah, even looking back at some of that early girlfriend stuff is just embarrassing to think about some of the stupid shit you do. But that hang up first thing was the worst.
Oh my God, that damn phone up in your eardrum.
It's even worse to witness it.
Yeah, you're right. It is. To see somebody do it is 1,000 times worse than being the person doing it. Absolutely. But anyway, I'm hanging this up, and stay on the line for a second. And we'll be back hopefully next Saturday. Time I don't know yet. We'll figure it out. Night.
Okay. Sounds good.
Night.
All right.